Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year's Eve, or if you're watching this within the new year, happy 2024. Anyways, for this video I kind of want to go through my book journal and kind of say my favorite book from each of the month, which equals to 12 books. I thought this was easier to kind of wrap things up instead of me talking about all my favorite books, because there were a lot. And this year has been the year that I've read the most books I've ever read, which is the total of 115. Anyway, so my book journal in general is kind of empty, but there has been like book covers that are stuck in for each month. So for January wise, I only had read 2 books, and from these 2 I definitely will say Win is a better book than this one. Actually, for all of these I've talked about in my wrap-up, so if you ever want to see my deeper thoughts and opinions and ratings on them, that's where you can find them. I haven't written any star ratings under them just because sometimes they change. I don't know, I just felt like I wanted a bit more of a cleaner vibe, and I might actually change that for next year. I'm not sure yet. So yeah, Win is winning for January. For February I read 6 books. I believe it or not, I thought Dark Places by Gillian Flynn was the best one out of all of these 6. Don't get me even started on Sally Rooney, because damn, never want to go through that again. Now March, and you can definitely see with each month that I started to increase the books I read. And March, books that I had started to mark with green were really close to 5-star rating, but just not really there, and books that I would recommend, books that I thought were good. And so out of all of these 8, it's gonna sound very basic, but it's going to be ACOTAR. I mean, A Court of Thorns and Roses, I feel like that really hit the nail on the coffin, and I started to get lost in all of these stories because I was chasing that high. I really was chasing that high. April, I read 10 books, and as you can see, there were some really good ones. What really did it for me was A Court of Mist and Fury. ACOMAF is just my 6-star read, and I absolutely loved it. And books that I marked with pink is absolutely my 5-star read. So April of this year, I found my first 5-star read of the year, and it took me a while, but I did find it. Now May was actually a really good month for me, and I read 14 books, and this one was one of my favorite months ever. Where do I begin? So my 5-star reads of the month were Daughter of the World and The Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. And it's difficult to choose already between books, but to choose between 5-star books I feel like is even tougher. So I feel like for this, I'd say my favorite one was The Happy Ever After playlist. No, I feel like fantasy is always a really good choice, even though I love rom-coms. I'm so torn, so torn. It was by far my most read books of the month. That was a really good one for me. June I had read 10 books, and between those 10 books I'm gonna have to say my favorite one was The Sweetest Oblivion. I mean, I love me some mafia romance, and it had forced proximity, it had fake marriage. No, it wasn't fake marriage. It had marriage. It just, I absolutely loved it and adored it, and definitely 5 stars. Now July, I had read 9 books. This one, so the 5-star read that I actually have for the month is My Body by Emily Ratajkowski, and I just love the way that she wrote in it. The writing style, it was just so simple, and it really did sound like her. It just, everything about it, I connected to the book, and it was the easiest 5-star book that I easily rated. I didn't even have to think about it, I just knew. It was just so relatable, so realistic, just everything in a book that you're looking for. Absolutely loved it and adored it. August, I had read 10 books, and funny enough, there were a good few books that I actually didn't like. But my favorite one, which is marked already, it's Wishes, and it's dark romance, but I loved because it just reminded me so much of Sweetest Oblivion, and I'm always looking for a book so similar to that vibe. It kind of felt like a mix between that but also Corrupt vibes. Like, if you love Corrupt, I feel like you will love that too, just a little less unhinged characters. September, I had read 12 books, no, 11, and my favorite one out of all of them, I actually had given The Way I Used to Be 5 stars, I just hadn't marked it. So I'm going to say The Way I Used to Be. Like, my heart felt heavy. Read your trigger warnings because it's definitely not an easy book to kind of get through. But it made me emotional and I loved it. October, 11 books again. And I had a good few books that were 5 stars, which was the best reading month in a sense of 5 stars, like 3 5-star books in a month. So between these three, I'm definitely gonna have to say Keeping 13. Keeping 13, I feel like, is my ultimate favorite book that I found, like, ever. I absolutely love it and it lives in my head rent free. Like, I wake up, I think about it, before I go to sleep, I think about it constantly. So if you haven't read it, read it. Like, the Boys of Torment series is my favorite series, I feel like, ever. November was okay. I had read 9 books, and even though I haven't found my 5-star book in November, I feel like I'm gonna say Saving Six was my favorite. You again, and I loved Red Rising. Red Rising was my book that I read out of my comfort zone, but Saving Six, I just loved the banter, the characters, just the whole universe. I love Boys of Torment, so I will have to say it's that. Now December, I have read 15 books, but I've yet to put in my last book of the year, which was Pocketful of Blame by Chloe Walsh. And this was, I feel like, this was a nice one because I had read a couple more books that were out of my comfort zone, and I read a bunch of novellas, but I also have read books that I wanted to continue on with the series instead of just stopping in the middle of them, which I'm just so guilty for. And out of these 15 books, which I haven't had found the 5-star book yet either, I'm gonna have to say my favorite one is Treacherous by Chloe Walsh. Are we surprised? No, yes, no. I feel like Chloe Walsh has definitely become my favorite author. I discovered her this year and I just cannot stop reading her books, her stories. Just, I'm obsessed. I'm actually obsessed. Now here's the little fun part. Between all the 12 books that I had just mentioned, I'm going to narrow them down to my number one favorite book of the year. So between Win and Dark Places, I'm gonna have to say Win was my favorite one. Between Alcatraz and A Court of Mist and Fury, I'm gonna have to say definitely it's Akama, because it's my 6-star read and I absolutely love and adore that book. I'm going to reread that book, plain and simple as. I want to go back to that world, and it's my favorite book of the whole series. And it's my favorite book by far that I read of Sarah J Maas. I've yet to read a few other of her books in Throne of Glass series, but so far that's my favorite one. Between Daughter of the World and Sweetest Oblivion, I'm gonna have to say Sweetest Oblivion. Between My Body and Vicious, obviously it's gonna have to be Vicious. And between I Used to Be and Keeping 13, I'm gonna have to say Keeping 13. Yeah, Keeping 13 just had, like I said, more banter. Just, I love Chloe Walsh writing, just her books and everything. Now then, between Saving Six and Treacherous, which are both by Chloe Walsh, I'm gonna have to say Treacherous because I feel like there was way more to the storyline than as opposed to Saving Six, which was more mostly between like the two main characters, Joey and Eva, and just I want more characters to be involved, more of a storyline. So I'm gonna have to say Treacherous. So the 6 spots have been filled. Let's cross out 3 more. Between Win and Akamath, I'm gonna have to say obviously Akamath, 6-star book. Between The Sweetest Oblivion and Vicious, I feel like they both have a very similar vibe. They're both dark romances. I'm gonna have to say The Sweetest Oblivion. They're very similar. I feel like they're just so similar. Then between Keeping 13 and Treacherous, I'm gonna have to say Keeping 13. So between the 3 books, I feel like it's easy to cross out The Sweetest Oblivion, but between Akamath and Keeping 13, which I feel like are my 6-star reads, I find it so hard to choose. I'm gonna go with Keeping 13. I feel like it's the obvious choice. Out of all the authors that I had read this year, I feel like Chloe Walsh was my favorite one, and I feel like that says a lot. I enjoy her books the most. They just feel like a warm cup of tea. I just love her writing style. I'm actually not surprised that that is the book that I feel like was my top one, my favorite one, my go-to. I feel like that is the book that I would reread, my comfort book. I feel like everyone has one, and that is definitely the book that I would reach for more than I'd reach for any other book. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.